Hello, and thank you for viewing this poster session, Equity in the Age of AI, Future-Proofing Student Success and Career Pathways. My name is Yolanda Harper, and I work at the University of Arizona Global Campus. In this brief session, I'll explore how artificial intelligence is increasingly shaping our students' academic journeys and their career trajectories, and how those systems can operate as both gatekeepers and gateways. I'll touch on four threads that matter for equity-minded teaching in online and hybrid environments. First, managing our own biases and assumptions. Two, removing institutional barriers. Three, addressing AI and equity explicitly with students. And four, integrating intercultural and global competence into our course and program design. As educators, we are now working in a landscape where AI quietly powers tools our students use every day. Writing assistants, translation, tutoring systems, recommendation engines, and where AI also shapes the hiring and advising systems they will encounter after graduation. These tools are not neutral. They can embed and amplify human and institutional assumptions about merit, professionalism, language, disability, culture, and even which labor markets count. For equity-minded teaching, that means we have at least three responsibilities. First, to develop our own AI literacy so we understand the tools shaping our courses and our students' futures. Second, to treat AI as a topic for critical inquiry, not just convenience. And third, to design learning experiences that help students recognize bias, navigate systems strategically, and imagine alternatives, especially from intercultural and global perspectives. Let's look at the first case, AI in hiring. Imagine a large employer using an AI resume screening tool. The system has been trained primarily on resumes from applicants who attended a narrow set of universities and who write in a particular version of standard US so-called professional English. Over time, the algorithm learns to favor those patterns. The outcome is that male and majority group candidates are shortlisted more often than equally qualified women and African American and Latinx male applicants, or applicants whose language, formatting, or experiences don't match the historical pattern. From a teaching perspective, this raises challenging questions. How do our assignments, rubrics, and feedback implicitly train students to conform to that narrow model of professionalism? Whose communication styles, cultural references, and linguistic repertoires are treated as the default, and whose are marked as unprofessional, informal, or not ready? When we examine AI in hiring through an equity lens, we are also examining our own expectations in the classroom. Consider the second case. This involves AI in advising and workforce alignment. Consider a college or university that uses AI-driven labor market analytics to identify local skill gaps and then develops new short-term credentials in response. Advising tools help steer online adult and working learners toward programs that align with in-demand jobs and better wages. Used thoughtfully, this can be a genuine gateway. It can open pathways for students who have been historically excluded from high demand fields. And it can help institutions align curricula with labor market data. But at the same time, These tools, very same tools, can become gatekeepers when they assume consistent high-speed internet, a certain device, or a particular pattern of prior academic success, or when the underlying models encode narrow assumptions about which students fit which careers. As educators, we can ask, are our courses and programs preparing students to understand and critique these advising systems? And are we designing curricula that help students imagine a wider range of futures than the AI might initially suggest? So, how do we respond in our academic practice? A first step is naming our own biases and assumptions. Many of us carry implicit ideas about what a serious or professional student looks like, how they write, speak, show up on camera, or respond to deadlines. Those ideas often align with particular cultural, ethnic, linguistic, and class norms, and AI systems trained on historical data can magnify them. We can also look for institutional barriers that quietly interact with AI use, high bandwidth synchronous requirements that exclude students with limited connectivity, heavy reliance on automated proctoring that disadvantages students with disabilities or those in crowded home environments, quote unquote standard English only communication norms that don't recognize global Englishes or multilingual repertoires. And what additional institutional barriers are you aware of? By surfacing these biases and barriers, we create space to redesign courses, policies, and technology choices so that AI becomes less of a gatekeeper and more of a genuinely supportive tool. Here are some concrete strategies you might adapt for your own teaching or academic support context. First, bring AI and equity into the curriculum through short, discipline relevant activities. For example, you might ask students to analyze a news story or research summary about biased hiring algorithms and connect it to your field's norms around professionalism or evaluation. Second, explicitly center intercultural and global competence. You might use examples of resumes, cover letters, or professional communication from multiple countries and linguistic backgrounds. Invite students to compare how AI tools such as resume builders, translation systems, or career platforms behave across different regions or languages. Encourage students to share their own transnational or intercultural experiences with technology and work, positioning them as co-experts. Third, reduce institutional barriers where you have influence. Offer low bandwidth alternatives, multimodal participation options, and transparent explanations of any AI mediated tools you ask students to use. Even small design choices can shift who feels included and who feels excluded. Another example is the discipline-specific AI system audit mini assignment. Ask students to select an AI tool relevant to your field, for example, a tutoring chatbot in psychology, an image generator in design, or a coding assistant in CS. Have them investigate who created it, whose data was it trained on, whose problem does it claim to solve, and who might be left out or harmed. Students submit a short reflection or slide. Here, one way this tool could help close an equity gap in my field, or one way it could widen a gap if used uncritically, or preferably have them do both. Students can also be guided in comparing AI feedback across identities or contexts. For example, we might provide students with 2 or 5 parallel prompts for an AI tool. Here we have 4 personal statements that differ only in name, university, or location. We would have students analyze whether the AI's feedback, tone, or suggestions differ, and what type of assumptions about ethnicity, gender, institution type, language, or geography might be embedded. First, we ask students to paste each version separately into the same AI tool with the prompt, "Please give this applicant feedback on how to strengthen their personal statement for selective universities." Then we have students connect findings to course concepts. For example, stereotype threat, structural discrimination, linguistic justice, global power relations, and propose one guideline for fairer classroom use of such tools. For the sake of time, I'll move on from this slide to the next one quickly. However, you are encouraged to pause the video to review the inputs and outputs closely. So here are some example feedbacks. This slide shows the outputs for each personal statement given the same prompt in Notebook LM. Again, I encourage you to play around with this and similar prompts in at least 3 different AI tools. And feel free to pause the recording and compare the AI feedbacks more carefully. As you reflect on these examples, I invite you to consider 3 questions for your own context. What is one bias or assumption in your course or program that could be amplified by AI tools? What is one institutional barrier, such as a policy, technology requirement, schedule, or language norm that might limit equitable access to AI-enabled opportunities? What is one concrete change you are willing to test in the next term to better integrate AI, equity, and intercultural or global competence into your work with students? Thank you for spending these few minutes thinking with me about AI, not just as a tool, but as a space where equity work, teaching practice, and global perspectives might come together. This QR code takes you to my UAGC bio page, and feel free to contact me at the email address on the screen. Enjoy the rest of the conference.